In the fall of 2015, an anime called One Punch Man got released. It had a goofy premise where a bald-headed guy with a cape could annihilate all his enemies with one punch. And this anime went to be one of the most prolific anime of its decade, with its manga sales reaching top 10 of the year numerous times, and also being one of the most followed manga. And if you ask a lot of people what made the anime so popular, 99.9% of them will tell you it was the animation. And that's mostly true, but I don't want people to get the wrong idea here. When I say that the main appeal of the first season of One Punch Man was the animation, I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think the story was mediocre. I mean, One Punch Man's first season is not Demon Slayer, where a standard story got boosted into mega popularity because of its insane anime adaptation. And Demon Slayer fans, please don't kill me for saying that. But you get the gist. One Punch Man's story is one of the most fun and hype stories to follow, with a lot of subtextual thematic relevance in them. In short, what I'm saying is, in my opinion, it is one of the best stories in anime manga. So the animation of season 1 wasn't the only thing that was carrying it, but let's be real here, even if the story is good, animation plays a major role in making an anime adaptation big, and that was the case for One Punch Man season 1. One Punch Man season 1 was and is one of the best anime adaptation of a manga. Not only was it faithful in adapting the portion of manga chapters that it did, but it has top-notch animation from beginning to end, and in my opinion, it has one of the best animated fight scenes I've seen in anime to this day, which is the Genos vs Saitama fight, where Genos wanted to test his strength against him. That fight included some smooth fire animation, especially with the way Genos utilized his powers. I really liked it, but what most people don't realize was One Punch Man season 1 was a one-off thing. The quality of One Punch Man season 1 was not sustainable for Studio Madhouse, which was the studio responsible for making One Punch Man back in 2015. Madhouse back in the late to mid 2010s was like how Studio Mappa is today. They are the big dog animation studios who were adapting the most popular animes of their day, such as Hunter x Hunter, Overlord, and etc. And one major name in the industry called Shingo Natsume gathered some of the big names of the industry like Yutaka Nakamura, who's worked on anime such as Cowboy Bebop, Yoshimichi Kameda, who's worked on Mob Psycho 100 and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Chisaki Kubota, who's worked on Space Dandy and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Arigumi Imai, who's worked on Attack on Titan and now recently on Vinland Saga and Sakamoto Days, and Bahi JD, who's worked on Suzume and Kids on the Slop. These people have worked on a lot more anime than I mentioned here. By the way, those were just some of the animes they've worked on. And what Shingo Natsume, the director of One Punch Man, managed to do by assembling this all-star animators back then was a very big deal, and one that can't be replicated easily. And the rest is history. They made One Punch Man one of the most popular anime in history, and then it was time to make season 2. During this time, Shingo Natsume, the director of One Punch Man season 1, wanted to recreate the magic that was One Punch Man season 1, but big names were gathered to make season 1, and these are not the type of people who are just going to sit and wait around till they're called up for another project. These big name animators were in high demand, so when the time came up for Studio Madhouse to make season 2, all the big name animators that worked on season 1 were already working on other projects. So Shingo Natsume, the director of One Punch Man season 1, didn't have his old team that helped him make season 1. And add to that, the way Madhouse were moving in the early to mid 2010s didn't help at all. Madhouse were like how Studio Mappa is today. They took on many projects than they could handle and didn't have the capacity to do One Punch Man season 2. So Shingo Natsume's dream to make One Punch Man season 2 was never to be. And what follows is one of the most baffling decisions I think that's ever been made in the anime industry. Here's what happened. Studio Madhouse could no longer do One Punch Man season 2. They had to relinquish that job to another studio, and they pick one of the most unqualified studios to adapt a heavy action anime like One Punch Man to Studio JC staff. This is one of the most shocking and tragic decisions made in the anime industry in my opinion. How do you give the job of of adapting One Punch Man to a studio whose main job is adapting slice of life and romance anime. I know they've adapted some fantasy and action anime like Is It Wrong to Try and Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, but come on, they are not of the same caliber as One Punch Man. I would have understood giving One Punch Man to studios like Wit Studio or Studio Bones, studios that actually do action anime that require high animation, but JC Staff? I don't understand that decision at all. And this is where we find ourselves right now, getting a subpar adaptation, especially when you compare it to what season 1 was. And when I see this, I'm not advocating for people to harass the team members at JC Staff who are working on the One Punch Man anime. I know there are a lot of people on Twitter that are frustrated about the situation and are harassing the staff members, and that is not the right thing to do, because I feel like this behemoth of a job got dropped on them out of nowhere and now they have to deal with it. Harassing people online is just not the way, and it's not going to solve anything. But the one thing that frustrates me the most is what is getting adapted right now is arguably the best parts of One Punch Man story. You've got Garou, this ridiculous great antagonist, and you're anticipating this great fight between Saitama and him and all the other fights that is going on, and you just know they won't do the manga justice, because let's be real here, One Punch Man season 1 was a miracle. I see this because it managed to live up to the quality of the manga's art. The One Punch Man manga is one of the most beautifully drawn manga out there. It's like if animators managed to live up to the standards of the Berserk manga art and the Vagabond manga art. That's how good I deem season 1 of One Punch Man to be. And you could only sit there and reminisce about the what if. What if Shingo Natsumi could retain the animators who helped him make season 1? What if they did the whole Garou arc? And man, it's such a shame that isn't the case. But there's no point reminiscing about things we can't change. To be honest with you right now, what I want is for another studio to handle One Punch Man. I want a studio who loves the One Punch Man IP and who would do anything to see through the adaptation of One Punch Man with stellar animation. I want the same scenario that played out for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with David Productions to also play out for One Punch Man anime as well, where a studio and its staff members from top to bottom are so passionate about the IP, they go through hoops and loops to adapt the story fully with great animation. Because One Punch Man is a story that deserves it. David Productions picked up JoJo's Bizarre Adventures when it had some mediocre adaptation in the 2000s and it didn't even tell the story properly. They picked up the story of JoJo's and throughout the years have managed to adapt the story from the beginning, and at this rate give them some 6 years and they'll be fully caught up to the manga. And the way they do it is by going at their own pace. They don't rush the adaptation. They give themselves time to give the fans the best possible adaptation. And here's another frustrating thing about the whole One Punch Man in Madhouse giving the job to JC Staff thing I didn't talk about. The main reason Madhouse gives the job of adapting One Punch Man to JC Staff was because JC Staff had a reputation for handling tight schedules. So basically Madhouse gave the One Punch Man project to JC Staff because they wanted a studio that could release it quickly. To be frank, it was more like the production committee who pressured Madhouse at the time to release it within a tight schedule, which Madhouse couldn't do, so they had to relinquish the job to a studio like JC Staff who could release it quickly even if it meant reduced quality in animation. And the production committee ruined it. They ruined what could have been a generational anime, because look at what Madhouse is doing today. They are the ones responsible for the Frieren Beyond Journeys and anime adaptation, the anime that is deemed as one of the best ever according to my anime list, whether you like Mal or not. And now they are on course to make season 2, and that just gives you hope. As long as nothing drastic happens, the superb anime adaptation of Frieren will soon catch up to the manga. So had Madhouse not taken a lot of projects to animate and put themselves in a situation where they had to relinquish the responsibility of adapting the One Punch Man anime, had the production committee had more patience and given more time for Madhouse, maybe we would have seen Shingo Natsume, the director of One Punch Man season 1, gather the team he had for season 1, and since this days Madhouse has learned from their mistake of taking a lot of projects and overworking their staff, we could have seen a consistent, somewhat far apart releases of quality One Punch Man seasons. But alas, that is never to be, and it kills me. If you've made it this far into the video, please make sure to subscribe. It will mean a lot. And with that said, see you guys in the next one.